Hey dog.
I'm not a dog. I'm a robot.
Cool. Do you know who Adam Smith is?
Sure I do. Adam Smith is a human actor. He was in Men in Black.
Ha, no. That's Will Smith.
Oh, then? Who is Adam Smith?
Adam Smith is the father of capitalism. He's pretty much a genius.
A genius?
Yep,
Prove it.
he wrote a bunch of stuff.
Oh, well, then that proves it.
Adam Smith wrote The Theory of Moral Sentiments, and an inquiry into the nature and causes of the will of nations.
Oh, I know what that is. The Wealth of Nations attempts to explain why free economic, political, and religious markets are not only more efficient in increasing the wealth of nations but also more in keeping with nature. The theory of moral sentiments is about a person's character and ethics, or moral psychology. I learned that in bartender school.
Oh, so you know. So I was reading about taxes in the wealth of nations. I was wondering what he would think about the corporate taxes we have in America right now.
I'm not sure what he would think, but certainly, corporate taxes affect the free market economy. I think corporate taxes are a good thing. Big corporations need to be taxed and pay their fair share to the government. Those corporations have too much political power.
No, Adam Smith says the person who either acquires or succeeds to a great fortune does not necessarily acquire or succeed to any political power, either civil or military. His fortune may perhaps afford him the means of acquiring both, but the mere possession of that fortune does not necessarily convey to him either. But that money does give a person purchasing or commanding power.
What is commanding power?
It could mean to hire people to labor for him or her.
Yeah, I think that could be a good thing if it creates jobs. But we should still tax them.
Except corporate taxes might be a deterrent to domestic jobs.
What do you mean?
I mean, if the taxes in America are too high for businesses, bad things could happen. For instance, Adam Smith says that if the taxes are too high, a person would be apt to abandon the country in which he was exposed to such a burdensome tax, and would remove his business to some other country where he could either carry on his business or enjoy his fortune more at his ease.
Well, it seems that a tax assessed in this manner can be compensated only by its extreme moderation.
Yes. Every tax ought to be so contrived as both to take out and to keep out of the pockets of the people as little as possible.
But taxes shouldn't need to be paid to run the government.
Yes. That is very true. But corporate taxes that are too high can drive the market prices up.
Well, that makes sense. If a corporation has to pay higher taxes, they could raise the rate of their profit only by raising the price of their goods. In which case the final payment of the tax would fall altogether upon the consumers of those goods. That's you and me. Because so far as a corporation couldn't relieve the tax burden one way, they would be obliged to relieve it in the other.
You sound like Adam Smith. But if we lower the corporate taxes, then it will raise the deficit, which hurts job creation.
Spending raises the deficit. There is no art which one government sooner learns of another than that of draining money from the pockets of the people. I don't think it raises the deficit at all. It might hurt overall government income because raising the taxes can hurt the gross domestic product by lowering production. Adam Smith said of high taxes that such is a distrust in the justice of the tax assessors, that corporations counterfeit poverty and wish to appear scarce able to pay anything for fear of being obliged to pay too much. Even though in the long run, this does more damage to the company.
Yes. You're right. Corporations are doing that now, already. Companies are just holding on to trillions of dollars of mad cash. President Obama said there have been reports of companies making record profits, right now at a time when everybody else is getting hammered.
Yeah, I think corporations distrust the market right now.
Ha, I distrust the market right now too.
Well, it's all a matter of velocity.
Velocity?
Yeah, we can manipulate the corporate taxes so that corporations can still wear the badge of liberty that comes from paying the tax, but yet keep them producing domestically. Velocity refers to the speed and amount of production. But that has to be controlled too. Too much production messes with the market too. Corporate taxes can be the visible hand that regulates the market.
Oh. Supply and demand. I thought it was all controlled by an invisible hand.
There is a visible hand, too. The invisible hand is only half the equation that helps us to see why people are prone to distrust the market and interfere with it.
Yeah, I guess we are led to believe we can do good by intervening into markets.
Yes, like corporate taxes. But it must be noted that according to Smith, changes of this kind should never be introduced suddenly, but slowly, gradually, and after a very long warning.
That means the legislature, were it possible that its deliberations could be always directed, not by the clamorous importunity of partial interests, but by an extensive view of the general good, ought upon this very account, perhaps, to be particularly careful when making tax law.
I feel like the gap between the rich corporations and the poor people is just getting wider and wider.
There is some truth to that. According to Smith, maybe corporate taxes have something to do with that, too.
How?
Well, a tax of this kind, when it is not proportioned, but is the same upon all companies, even though the cost is passed to the consumer, it favors the large companies and oppresses the small ones. If the tax is too much, even if small companies pass on the cost to the consumer, they have to go out of business.
Oh, good gravy, Batman. That just leads to monopolies then.
Yeah, the competition of the smaller companies being taken away gives the larger, more out-of-touch companies the monopoly. And like all other monopolists would soon have combined to raise their profits much beyond what was necessary for the payment of the tax. The final payment, instead of falling upon the shopkeeper, would have fallen upon the consumer, with a considerable overcharge to the profit of the shopkeeper. Then the corporations have way too much power. Their money can be used to lobby the legislative branch.
That's true. We could use corporate taxes to enact a sort of social justice and curb that self-interested tendency. We can use corporate taxes as a way to control and limit the power.
So it turns out Smith wasn't totally against such an idea as corporate taxes.
I guess it looks that way. I'm glad we talked about it. It made my night.
So, now that we've completely bonded over some serious political and economic philosophy, how about you let me take you to dinner?
Just because Adam Smith believed in the sentimental, kind, and compassionate nature of people, does not mean I do. So, no. You've had too many anyway. Go home.
The resources used to make this video were The Wealth of Nations, by Adam Smith, published by Bantam Books in the year 2003, but Smith wrote the first edition in 1776, a great year.
Also, a work titled Distinguished Guest Lecture by Vernon L. Smith, published by the University of Alabama in 1997.
And lastly, procon.org Corporate Tax Rate and Jobs.
Oh, well. One more quote from Adam Smith, he said.
Every individual necessarily labors to render the annual revenue of the society as great as he can.
He generally indeed neither intends to promote the public interest, nor knows how much is promoting it.
He intends only his own security. And by directing that industry in such a manner as its produce may be of the greatest value, he intends only his own gain.
And he is, in this, as in many other cases, led by an invisible hand to promote an end which was no part of his intention.
Nor is it always the worse for the society that it was no part of it. By pursuing his own interest, he frequently promotes that of the society more effectually than when he really intends to promote it.
I have never known much good done by those who affect to trade for the public good. It is an affectation indeed not very common among merchants, and very few words need be employed in dissuading them from it.